Okay, so this is a 3-inch circle that I've stitched a center penny, and then I've stitched these other two, and I'm going to work all the way around. I'm using a size 22, actually it might be a 20 or a 22 chenille needle. They are the best needle to use with wool or crochet cotton. This is number 10 crochet cotton that I've over dyed. Just the best needle for doing penny rugs, for stitching into wool. They're like a darning needle. They are sharp on the end, not like a darning needle, but they're about the size. They're easy to thread, easy to work with, just terrific. So now here's a hank of my thread that I've dyed. So I'm going to pull off a piece of thread, and I'm going to show you how I start the first penny. And I'm going to use the needle from this one. Oops, don't want to get any knots going right away. Okay, this is about an 18-inch, no, it's about a meter, about a yard of thread. I'm going to thread the needle. Let's do that in the camera, show you that it really does work. Of course, it's going to give me trouble. It's so far away from me. I'm on one side of the camera and my needle is way out here. I never thread this far away. Come on, there it goes. Okay, so I'm going to shorten up the thread. Oh yeah, it's going to give me trouble just because I'm showing other people how to do it. Okay, shorten up my thread. Take the 3-inch circle now. There we go. And my little trick, oh look, it's got interfacing on the back. And sometimes interfacing, we leave it, sometimes we pull it off. It just depends on how well it's stuck, and then if it makes the fabric shred or pull. This is really nice wool. Nothing happened to the edges. It's all nice and tight still. So I knew that was going to happen because I've been working with this wool for a while. And we leave the interfacing because it's just too much effort to take it off when you're recycling, and if it really wasn't very thick. But what I'm doing here is finding the center of the circle. See that little trick where I folded it into 4? And I'm just going to start with a back stitch. Right here. This is going to be hidden by the first penny. And there, you know what? I'm used to using long thread, but I don't recommend it for a beginner. Okay, remember I showed you how I thread my smaller pennies onto a piece of wool or a piece of excess cotton. So I can just pull off the first one. It's going to go in the middle. Right there. I'm going to bring my thread up from behind. Now I'm going to do a blanket stitch. And I work my blanket stitch to the right. Did you see how I'm going to show you that again. That's the first stitch. In, out, right where you see that where I came in? This thread is the same color as the wool. Now I wrap the thread around the needle, and what happens when I pull on that, snug it up, that first stitch is going to sit perfectly straight. It's not going to lean over. That's my little trick for making that first stitch. So I'm going to go around to the right. That's my technique. Some people go to the left. I go to the right. Whatever works for you. There's no rules. You can stitch your pennies. You can do your blanket stitch inside, outside, right side, left side. Whatever works for you. Okay, we're going to lengthen the thread. There we go. Along the needle. Oh, I've got another great tip for you. When you're doing a lot of stitching and your needle, your thread, being as long as my thread is, gets a bit twisted, if it starts to make lots of knots, just let it hang like that. and it unspins. And off you go again. It's going to work all the way around this. Whoops. Trying to keep the first circle somewhat centered. It might shift a little bit, but wool is really forgiving, and you can sort of adjust as you go. Here we go, we're almost finished. There's a little trick at the end that you want to keep an eye on as you're coming in, as you're closing in on the last stitch. Where's my thread? There it is. As you're closing in on that last stitch, you want to space it just right. Get it as close as you can to even. But there's no rules, so if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Your stitching gets better. You should have seen my first stitches, the first time I ever did a blanket stitch or a first rug I ever made. Whoa. But you know what? I love that first rug. Okay, I have to lengthen my thread again. And here, this is really interesting. This is how, I think this is really interesting. If you love penny rugs, it is. This is how we finish off the last stitch. You have come up here. Now you want to join it up with the first stitch. So just on the inside of our first stitch, can you see that? That's where you send your needle through. And look at that. You're done. Your first one's done. We go back to our pennies, take the next color or the next one off, and I'm going to show you here how to get started on the next one. And as you stitch all of these, you're going to want to keep them snug together so that in the end all 6 actually fit all the way around. So you know, you don't want to have a big space between them as you're stitching these ones on. You want to keep them really snug. So let's just start here. I'll show you. I'm just coming up anywhere that's comfortable on that next circle behind it. And you see how the thread, there's my knot. It's not really a knot, it's just a back stitch to begin. Knots are lumpy. You want to do back stitches. And then I'm just coming up over here now. I could come up anywhere where this circle is, this 9/16 circle is, but I'm going to come up right over there, and then kind of figure out where I am, go through the same spot again, and don't forget to do that twist. When you do that twist, go in the direction of the twist goes in the direction you're going to stitch in. Don't forget to do that first one because it just makes the stitch stand at attention. If you don't do it, it'll pull to the right or pull to the left depending on the direction of your stitch, and it'll just sort of lean over. It won't stand up like the other ones. So I'm going to stitch this one on. I'm looking at my work and not at the camera, so there you go, a little bit of a focus. I'll stitch this one on and I'll come back. I'll stitch the last. I'll go to the 5th one or the 6th one, and I'll come back and show you how we do the last one. But work them all. Go ahead of me if you're doing this. Work them all on, and see that? Keeping it snug. I have to have room here to have stitching room to stitch this larger circle onto my larger piece of fabric when I'm done all of this. So I'll catch up with you. Part 3 is coming.